The machine breathes for her. That is the first thing Caius Whitmore hears when he walks through the door of room 14B, not the quiet shuffle of expensive heels on hospital tile, not the low murmur of 5 women who have rearranged their entire Monday to be standing in this room, not even the doctor whose mouth is already moving in that slow, careful way that means the news is bad and getting worse. He hears the machine. The steady, mechanical pull and release of air that his 18-year-old daughter can no longer manage on her own. Alira looks small. She has always been small, but this is different. This is the kind of small that happens when a body starts letting go of things it no longer has the energy to hold. She is lying in the center of a bed that is too white, under lights that are too bright, and her eyes are closed, and her hands are resting at her sides, and for one full second Caius Whitmore, a man who controls $3 billion across 4 continents, cannot move. He makes himself move. The room is too full. 5 women line the far wall like a panel of judges who dressed for the occasion. Varel Hartman, whose hedge fund has reshaped 2 city skylines, stands at one end with her arms crossed and her expression carefully arranged into grief she has rehearsed but never felt. Diana Cho is beside her, checking her phone with the screen tilted at an angle she believes is discreet. Renata St. Clair, whose face has been on the cover of 3 national magazines this year alone, is already composing the look she will wear for the condolence message she plans to post. Melissa Park stands perfectly still, patient the way predators are patient. Brianna Walsh has sent so many flower arrangements to this room in the past 6 weeks that the nursing staff has started placing them in the hallway. Hi viewers, have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt completely alone? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because what happens next in this story is going to hit you different. Not one of these 5 women is looking at Alira. They are all looking at Caius. He crosses to the bed. He sits on the edge of it. He takes his daughter's hand, and his fingers are shaking, which surprises him, because his hands do not shake, have not shaken in 20 years, have signed off on mergers and terminations and the kind of decisions that end careers without producing so much as a tremor. But they are shaking now, and Alira opens her eyes, and for a long moment she just looks at him. The way people look at something they have needed for a long time and are no longer certain they trust. In the corner of the room, standing so still she could be furniture, is a woman in a plain gray uniform. Her name is Zora. She is not one of the 5. She does not have a title or a fund or a magazine cover. She is the hospital-contracted aide assigned to Alira's private suite, responsible for the linens and the meals and the quiet, unglamorous work of making sure a dying girl retains her dignity. She is watching Alira's face, not Caius's entrance. She has been watching Alira's face since before Caius walked in. Since before the women arranged themselves along the wall. She is watching Alira the way someone watches a person they are genuinely worried about, which is a completely different thing from watching someone you feel sorry for. The doctor approaches Caius. His voice drops. He says something about preparation. About the next 12 hours. About having people close. Alira's eyes move, past her father, past the women, past the machines, to the corner. Her hand lifts from the bed. Slowly. At the cost of something. She raises it the way people raise things that have gotten very heavy, and she points. And every person in that room turns to see who she is pointing at. Zora does not move right away. She looks at Alira's raised hand. She looks at the finger aimed directly at her across a room full of women who have diamonds on their wrists and car services waiting downstairs. And then she walks forward, not rushed, not performing, just steady, the way she has always moved in this room, like someone who has decided that her presence here is not a question that requires answering. She sits in the chair beside the bed. She takes Alira's raised hand and brings it down gently, and holds it, and says 2 words. I'm here. Alira exhales. The whole room feels it, the specific release of a breath that has been held for longer than just this moment. Caius watches his daughter's shoulders drop half an inch. He watches the tightness around her eyes ease. He watches an 18-year-old girl, in the last chapter of her life, go still in the presence of a woman in a gray uniform who earns $14 an hour. And something in Caius Whitmore cracks clean open. He does not show it. He is extraordinarily good at not showing things. But the crack is there, running right down the center of everything he thought he understood about what his daughter needed, and what he had been providing in its place. Varel watches this from the far wall. Her expression does not change. But her eyes do, a quick, precise recalibration, the look of a woman who has just identified a problem she did not account for in her original plan. The doctor says something else. Caius does not hear it. What he hears, instead, is a memory. 3 months old. His assistant relaying a message from the hospital. Elira had asked if someone could stay with her overnight on a Tuesday because the pain was bad and the room felt too large. Caius had been in Singapore. He had authorized additional nursing coverage and moved on to his next call. He had not come. He thinks about every Tuesday since then. Every Tuesday that Zora, apparently, did not leave at 6 when her shift ended. Every Tuesday that she pulled that chair to that specific position beside that bed and stayed until Elira fell asleep, telling stories that wandered and singing off-key and doing none of the polished, choreographed things that the women along the wall have spent months perfecting, just staying. Just being in the room. Just refusing to let an 18-year-old girl be alone with the loudest nights of her life. Caius did not know any of this until this moment. He is learning it by watching his daughter's face. Zora leans in close and says something low, too low for the room to catch. Elira listens. Something shifts in her expression, a grief and a tenderness happening at the same time, the way two songs can play in the same space if you listen right. Then Elira speaks aloud. Her voice is quiet, constructed from the thin reserve of breath she has left. But every word lands clean. She's the only one who doesn't make me feel like I'm already gone. Varel turns toward the window. Caius stares at his daughter. He thinks he has built the right life. He has provided everything money could access. He has sent the best doctors, the best facility, the most qualified staff. He has done what powerful men do. He has solved the problem of his daughter's illness with the full force of his resources. He has not once asked her what the problem actually felt like from the inside. The doctor touches his arm. Gently. The gesture of someone about to deliver a specific piece of information. He leans in and says it quietly, the way these things are always said when they are true and final. And Varel, across the room, watches Caius receive the news, and starts doing something quiet and invisible with her phone. By Tuesday of the following week, Zora receives a notice. It comes through the hospital's staffing portal at 6:47 in the morning while she is on the bus, 2 stops from Cedars-Sinai, with a thermos of coffee and a paperback she has been trying to finish for 3 weeks. The notification is brief and official and dressed in the language of procedure. Her contracted access to room 14B has been flagged for administrative review pending a formal complaint filed by a concerned party. Effective immediately, she is reassigned to the 3rd floor general ward until further notice. Zora reads it twice. Then she closes the app. She looks out the bus window at the gray-gold morning and she drinks her coffee and she does not cry, because she is 34 years old and has been navigating systems designed to move people like her out of the way since she was 19, and she recognized this move the moment she read the words concerned party. Someone with access made a call. Someone who knew which number to dial. She does not know who. She does not need to know who. She knows what it means, and more importantly, she knows what Elira will feel when 6 o'clock comes and the chair beside the bed stays empty. That is the part she cannot sit with. In a corner office 40 floors above Wilshire Boulevard, Varel Hartman takes a call from the hospital board member she has been cultivating for 18 months. The conversation is short. She thanks him. She puts the phone down and opens her laptop and returns to the earnings report she was reviewing before the call, because Varel does not celebrate small moves. She logs them, and she moves forward. She is not wrong that Zora is the obstacle. She is only wrong about what removing the obstacle will accomplish. What Varel has miscalculated, and she has built a career on not miscalculating, is Elira. Elira, who has been sick long enough to develop a precise and unforgiving sensor for the difference between people who care and people who perform caring. Elira, who asked the charge nurse on the second day of her stay which staff members stayed past their shift hours and which ones clocked out to the minute. Alira, who already knows, down to the specific hour, every time Zora bent the rules of her contract to stay in that room. At 10:14 that Tuesday morning, a nurse walks into room 14B with fresh linens and an apologetic expression and explains that Ms. Zora has been reassigned. Alira listens to this calmly. She asks one question. For how long? The nurse does not know. Alira nods slowly. She turns toward the window. She is quiet for a long time, long enough that the nurse finishes the linens and leaves. Then Alira picks up her phone. Her hands are slower than they used to be, but she scrolls with purpose, and when she finds what she is looking for she makes a call, and the voice that answers on the other end is her father's assistant, and what she says is, "I need to speak to my father directly. Not a message." Now. The assistant hesitates. Caius Whitmore does not take unscheduled calls. No, Alira says again. Still quiet. Still calm. The specific calm of a person who has run out of time and knows it, and has chosen, in the time that remains, to use it honestly. The call goes through. And Caius, who is in a car somewhere between a breakfast meeting and his office, answers his daughter's call for the first time in 11 days. Caius arrives at Cedars Sinai at 11:38 a.m. He does not come through the main entrance. He comes through the private access on the building's east side, the entrance reserved for patients and family who do not want cameras. He has his jacket over one arm and no tie and the specific expression of a man who has been driving too fast and thinking too hard, which is a look his assistant has seen maybe twice in 6 years. He goes straight to 14B. Alira is sitting up when he walks in. Barely, the incline of the bed is doing most of the work, but she is upright, and her eyes are clear, and she is watching the door like she knew exactly how long it would take him to get here, which she probably did. He sits in the chair. The chair that Zora always occupies. He looks at his daughter, and she looks back, and neither of them says anything for a moment that stretches just past comfortable. Then Alira says, "They moved her." Caius already knows this. He spent the last 40 minutes of the drive on the phone with his director of operations, who spent those 40 minutes making calls and sending emails and pulling the thread of the complaint until it unraveled into the name of a board member and the specific financial relationship that board member maintains with Hartman Capital. He knows exactly who made the call. He does not tell Alira this. Not yet. What he says instead is, "I'm going to fix it." Alira studies him the way she has always studied him, with a precision that made her teachers call her old soul when she was 7 and makes her doctors call her remarkably aware now that she is 18 and aware of more than any 18-year-old should have to be aware of. "Why?" she says. Not accusatory. Genuinely asking. "Why now? You've had months to come. You've had years, really." The sentence lands without drama. That is what makes it devastating. Caius has no clean answer. He has explanations, the company, the deals, the particular acceleration of a business that does not pause for personal emergencies because personal emergencies do not pause it. But he knows, sitting in this room with this specific clarity pressing against him from all sides, that explanations are what a person reaches for when the truth is too uncomfortable to hold directly. He says, "I don't have a good answer for that." Alira looks at him for a long moment. "That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me," she tells him. She does not say it to hurt him. She says it the way a person states a fact they have long since made their peace with. And somehow that is worse than if she had said it to hurt him. Caius gets up. He goes to the window. He looks at the city he has spent 20 years building a name in, the skyline he can identify from 4 directions, the streets he has reshaped with capital and decisions, and the specific kind of will that does not take no for an answer. He has never once looked at it and felt small. He feels small now. "Tell me about her," he says. His back is still to the room. His voice has dropped to something lower and less arranged than the voice he uses for everything else. "Zora, tell me what I missed." Alira is quiet for a moment. Then she starts talking. She talks about Tuesday nights. About the badly told stories and the off-key singing and the particular ways Zora arranged the pillows so the pain in Alira's left side was less sharp. She talks about the night in November when she told Zora the things she had not told anyone else. I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of being forgotten before I'm gone, and what Zora said back. She talks about it the way people talk about things that saved them, which is to say, without exaggeration, because the truth is already large enough. Caius listens to all of it without turning around. When she finishes, he is quiet for a long time. Then he says, I'm going to call the board member. That's not what I want, Alira says. He turns. What do you want? She looks at him directly. I want you to bring her back. And then I want you to stay. In this room. With me. For whatever time is left. A pause. I want you to stop sending things and start showing up. The room holds that sentence between them like something fragile. Caius nods. Once. The way people nod when they mean it, and words are not sufficient. He takes out his phone. He makes the call. He does not ask. He informs. He is quiet and specific and entirely without aggression, and by the time the call ends, Zora's reassignment has been reversed, the complaint has been formally withdrawn, and the board member has had a very clear conversation about the limits of favors extended to private donors. Caius sits back down in the chair. He stays. For the first time in 3 months, for the first time, honestly, in years, he stays. Alira watches him settle into the chair. She watches him put his phone face down on the tray, which she has never seen him do. She watches him fold his hands and look at her, really look, with the particular quality of attention that means a person is present and not elsewhere. She exhales. And then the door opens, and Zora walks in, and stops when she sees Caius sitting in her chair. She looks at him. He looks at her. Alira looks at both of them from the center of the bed and says nothing, but the corner of her mouth moves, the very specific movement of someone who has just watched 2 separate pieces of a plan fall into place. Zora almost turns around. That is the honest truth of it. She stands in the doorway of room 14B with her thermos and her paperback and the particular exhaustion of someone who has been rerouted and reinstated and rerouted again in the span of a single morning, and she looks at Caius Whitmore sitting in the chair beside her patient's bed, and her first instinct is to back up slowly and give this room whatever private moment is clearly happening inside it. But Alira says, "Don't go." So Zora does not go. She takes the chair from the other side of the bed, the chair that is slightly less adjusted, slightly less worn into a specific shape, and she sits down, and she does not look at Caius, and he does not look at her, and Alira lies between them in the elevated bed like a referee who has already decided the outcome and is simply waiting for the game to confirm it. For a few minutes, nobody speaks. Then Caius says, not to Alira, to Zora, and this is the first time he has spoken to her as a person rather than a function. "She told me about Tuesday nights." Zora looks at Alira, who gives nothing back. This is also something Zora recognizes about her. She delivers situations and then goes deliberately neutral, because she wants to see what the people inside them will do without her direction. "Tuesdays were hard," Zora says simply. "I know that now," Caius says. And the weight in those 4 words, the specific weight of a man acknowledging what he should have known and did not, is so clear and undefended that Zora looks at him directly for the first time. He looks tired. Not the manufactured tiredness of men who want sympathy, but the real kind, the kind that comes from being inside a truth you cannot work your way out of. She has seen that look on people in hospital rooms before. It usually arrives too late to do anything with. But it is real, and she knows the difference. "She told me you stayed," he continues, "when you didn't have to. It wasn't about having to," Zora says. "I know." He pauses. "What was it about?" Zora looks at Alira, who is watching this with eyes that are quieter than usual. Eyes that look like someone attending something important. She needed someone to just be there. Not fix anything. Not manage anything. Just be there while it was happening. Caius absorbs this. He absorbs it the way people absorb things that are simple and obvious and have somehow eluded them for years. "I've been solving the wrong problem," he says. It comes out like a thought he didn't mean to say aloud. And Alira, who has been listening without appearing to listen, says, "Yes." Just that. No elaboration. She has a gift for leaving a sentence exactly where it lands without softening it. The afternoon moves around them. A nurse checks the machines. The light through the window shifts from gold to the flatter white of mid-afternoon. Caius does not check his phone. This is so unusual that Alira notices it and does not comment on it, which is its own kind of acknowledgement. At some point Zora tells a story, one of the wandering, unresolved kind that Alira loves precisely because they do not try to be anything. It involves a road trip and a wrong turn in a diner in rural Texas that only served two things, and it never arrives at a conclusion because Zora admits halfway through that she still does not know how it ends. Alira smiles at the ceiling. Caius watches his daughter smile. It occurs to him that he does not know the last time he made her smile. He cannot locate the memory. This fact sits in his chest like something that has no name yet. Later, when the light has gone fully flat and the room has taken on the particular stillness of early evening in a hospital, Alira turns to her father and says, "She stayed because she saw me. Not what I was losing. Not what I used to be. Just me. Right now. As I am." Caius is quiet. "Most people can't do that," Alira says. "Most people who love you see the person they're afraid of losing. Not the person who's actually there." She pauses. "Let's that settle. Zora saw me. Every Tuesday." Zora keeps her eyes on her hands. She does not fill the silence. She has learned, over many Tuesday nights, that Alira's silences are doing work and should not be interrupted. Caius looks at Zora for a long moment. Then he looks at Alira. He says, "I'm going to learn how to do that." Alira looks at him with the careful, measured gaze of someone who has heard promises before and knows the difference between the ones people mean and the ones they mean right now but will forget by Thursday. "You don't have much time to learn," she says. And the machines breathe. And the room is still. And somewhere in the building below them, Varel Hartman is composing a message to the same board member who took her call this morning, because a reversal this fast means someone hit the complaint from a position of information, and the only person with that information is Caius, and if Caius Whitmore is acting this quickly on behalf of a contracted aide, then Varel has made a miscalculation she needs to correct before it gets any larger. She types. She sends. She does not know that upstairs, in a room she has never once visited, Alira is looking at her father and saying, "I need you to promise me something. About her. About what happens after." Caius leans forward. "Tell me." And Alira begins to speak, low, precise, unhurried, as though she has been rehearsing this conversation for weeks, which she has. What she says changes everything that comes after. The letter arrives on a Thursday. Not to Caius's office. Not to his house in Bel Air with the gate and the long driveway and the security detail that rotates every 12 hours. It arrives to the hospital, hand-delivered by a law firm courier at 8:22 in the morning, addressed in handwriting that none of the nursing staff recognizes, sealed with the kind of quiet formality that signals the contents are meant to do damage without appearing to intend any. Caius is in the room when the nurse brings it in. He has been in the room every morning this week. He has started arriving before Zora, which means he is there when she walks in at 10, and there is between them a growing and mostly unspoken understanding that this room is now shared territory, not contested, not awkward, but shared in the way that two people who are both completely focused on the same third person eventually stop being strangers. He opens the letter. He reads it once fast. Then again, slow. It is from an attorney representing a coalition of investors in Whitmore Holdings, a group that holds, collectively, 19% of the company's outstanding shares. The letter outlines, in 12 precise paragraphs, a concern about the conduct and decision-making of Whitmore's principal executive during a period of personal distress. It references the complaint reversal at Cedars Sinai. It references Caius's reduced office hours over the past 10 days. It references, with the careful language of men who want to take something without appearing to reach for it, the question of executive stability. It is a move. A clean, institutional move, dressed in shareholder duty and corporate governance. And Caius knows exactly who drafted it, because he has spent 20 years in rooms with people who make moves like this, and this one has a specific signature. It is elegant, it is deniable, and it is designed to force a choice. He folds the letter. He puts it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He looks at Alira, who is watching him with eyes that are slower today, the medication heavier, the morning harder, but still precise. Still reading him. Something wrong? She asks. Business, he says. The word he has used his entire life to keep everything else out of the room. Alira holds his gaze for a moment. Business has always been your reason, she says. Not mean. Just true. He puts his hand over hers on the bed. He does not answer. When Zora arrives at 10, she takes one look at Caius's face and says nothing. She settles into the chair. She arranges the morning the way she always arranges it, small adjustments, the kind that don't announce themselves, a pillow moved 2 inches, the blinds tilted to cut the direct sun without losing the light. She has a whole language of care that operates below the level of speech, and Caius has started paying attention to it the way he pays attention to things he is trying to understand. At 11, he excuses himself. He goes into the hallway. He calls his general counsel. The call is 40 minutes. By the end of it, he knows the names of the 7 investors behind the letter. He knows which 3 are genuinely concerned and which 4 are being organized by a third party. He knows that the third party has had 3 phone calls with Hartman Capital in the last 5 business days. He knows everything he needs to know. He goes back into room 14B. He sits down. He looks at his daughter. She is asleep. The medication has finally pulled her under, and she is sleeping with her head turned slightly toward Zora's chair, the way she always sleeps, as though even unconscious, she is orienting toward the person who stays. Zora looks up from the book she is reading and meets Caius's eyes. How bad? She says quietly. He looks at her. You heard that? Thin walls, she says. And I wasn't trying not to hear. He almost smiles. It does not fully arrive, but the shape of it is there. Someone is trying to use the company to force me back to the office. Zora holds his gaze. Will it work? And the question sits there, simple and direct and carrying far more weight than its 4 words should carry, because what it is actually asking is, are you going to leave again? Caius looks at Alira asleep in the bed. He looks at the chair Zora is sitting in. The chair that has been held by someone every single day for 3 months. The chair that he failed to fill for 3 years. No, he says. It won't work. Zora nods once. She returns to her book. And the room is quiet, and the machines breathe, and somewhere outside the building the city moves at full speed, deals closing, phones ringing, the whole relentless machinery of the world Caius built, and none of it gets into this room. But that evening, when Caius walks to his car in the hospital parking structure, a black SUV is idling 30 feet from his space. The window comes down. The man inside is not a threat. He is a lawyer, one of the 7 names from the call, a man Caius has known for 9 years, a man who has always been straightforward and is being straightforward now. They're going to call a board meeting, the man says. Next Wednesday. Virel is the organizing vote. Caius looks at him for a long moment. Wednesday, he repeats. They think you'll choose the company, the man says. They're betting on it. Caius says nothing. He gets in his car. He drives back toward the hospital instead of home. He parks. He sits in the car for 10 minutes. Then he goes back upstairs. Alira asks him, on a Saturday morning when the light is good and the machines seem quieter than usual, why he never learned to stay. Not why he left. Not why he was always in another city, another meeting, another country. She has made her peace with those facts over many years and many therapist offices, and one particularly honest conversation with her mother's sister when she was 15. She asks why he never learned to stay, which is a more specific and more uncomfortable question, because leaving is a decision but staying is a skill, and she is asking him to account for the absence of a skill he could have built. Caius thinks about this for a long time. He says, "I built things when I was afraid. It was the only way I knew how to respond to fear. When your mother was sick, I built. When you got sick, I built more. I thought if I made enough, controlled enough, the fear would run out of room." Alira listens to this without interrupting, which is the thing about her he is learning to be grateful for. She does not jump into gaps. She lets sentences finish. "Did it work?" she asks. "No," he says. "No," she agrees. They sit with that for a while. Zora is at the window, adjusting the blinds for the third time this morning because the sun keeps shifting. She does this without comment, and Caius watches her, and there is something in the watching that is no longer about understanding who she is in relation to Alira but is becoming about something else, about who she is, specifically, as a person who moves through the world without needing to build things to feel safe in it. "How do you do it?" he asks her. Zora turns. "Do what?" "Stay calm," he says. "In rooms like this. Around all of this." She considers the question with the same seriousness she gives to all his questions now. There have been more of them this week, and she has noticed that they are getting more personal and less procedural, and she has decided to answer them honestly because dishonesty in this room seems like a particular kind of waste. "I grew up around loss," she says. "Early. And someone told me when I was young that you can't outbuild it, and you can't outrun it. The only thing you can do is be present enough that when it comes, you were actually there for the thing it's taking." The room is quiet. Alira says from the bed, without opening her eyes, "You should write that down, Dad." Caius exhales. It is almost a laugh. The closest thing to a laugh this room has produced in weeks. The morning continues. Alira drifts in and out. Caius reads the newspaper, not the financial sections, which he puts aside, but the rest of it, the parts he usually skips. Zora tells a story that starts in Memphis and ends, inexplicably, in a parking lot in Fresno with a flat tire and a stranger with a ukulele. And when Alira wakes up mid-story, she does not ask to be caught up, she just listens from wherever it is, because the story itself is the point and the destination has never been the point with Zora. At 2 in the afternoon, Caius receives a call from his general counsel about Wednesday's board meeting. He looks at the phone. He looks at Alira, who has fallen back asleep. He sends the call to voicemail. He has not done that in 15 years. He does it again an hour later when the same number calls back. Zora sees this. She does not comment. But she sees it, and somewhere in the machinery of her own private assessment of this man, the ongoing, careful reading she has been doing since he first sat in her chair, something shifts. Not dramatically. Just a small, real shift, the kind that happens when evidence accumulates past the point of doubt. That evening, when Alira is awake again and asking for her second cup of the terrible hospital tea she has inexplicably become attached to, she says, without looking at either of them, looking at the ceiling, "I want you both at the table on Sunday. Together. I want us to have dinner. In this room. Whatever the hospital can put together." Caius says, "I'll have food brought in." Zora says, "I'll make sure the table actually fits in here." Alira smiles at the ceiling. "Good," she says. "That's settled." And it is only after she says it that both Caius and Zora realize she has just arranged something, quietly, deliberately, without drama, that neither of them would have arranged on their own. And that this is completely consistent with who she has always been, which is a person who, even now, is doing the quiet work of making sure the people she loves will have something to hold on to after she is gone. Wednesday's board meeting is still coming. Either of them talks about it. On Sunday, the table fits, barely. Zora moves the 4 stand 2 feet to the left, tilts the visitor chairs against the wall, and positions the rolling meal table at an angle that technically violates 3 hospital ergonomic guidelines, but makes it possible for 3 people to sit around something resembling a shared surface. The food is from the Lebanese place 2 blocks from the hospital that Alira discovered via a nurse's recommendation 6 weeks ago, and has quietly been ordering from on bad days because the smell of garlic and warm bread is one of the only things that still makes her hungry. Caius arrives with the food and no phone visible anywhere on his body, which Zora notices immediately. They eat. Slowly. The way people eat when the meal is not about the food. Alira asks Caius to tell her something she does not know about him. Not business, not strategy, something personal, something true. He is quiet for long enough that Zora thinks he is going to redirect, and then he says, "I used to play piano. Before your mother. Before the company. I was actually good. I stopped when things got serious because it felt like something I couldn't afford to be." Alira looks at him. "You stopped being good at something because you were afraid it made you look soft," she says. He does not deny it. "That's very on brand," she says. Caius looks at Zora, who is concentrating on her food with the specific focus of someone choosing not to respond to something. "You agree?" he says. "I didn't say anything," Zora says. "Your face said it." Alira makes a sound that is the closest she has come to laughing in 2 weeks. It costs her. She presses a hand to her side, breathes through it, but it was worth it. Both of them can tell it was worth it. The dinner lasts 2 hours. At the end of it, Alira is tired but more herself than she has been in days. There is color in her face that the morning did not have. Caius clears the table. He does this without instruction, just picks up the containers, stacks them, disposes of them with the slightly uncertain efficiency of a man who does not often clear tables and is figuring out the sequence as he goes. Zora watches him. She thinks he is trying. Actually trying. Not performing the trying but doing it, clumsy and real and consistent in a way that is harder to dismiss every day. She is not sure what to do with this. She has spent 6 weeks in this room being someone's constant. She has not once thought about what comes after the room, because the room has been everything, the whole contained world of Tuesdays and bad nights and good mornings and the specific, sacred work of being present for someone who is running out of time. She has not let herself look past the room. But Sunday dinner has a quality that the room did not have before. It has the quality of something that is practicing to survive outside it. That night, after Alira sleeps and Caius has gone to the parking structure, Zora sits alone in the chair for 20 minutes. She does not read. She just sits. She thinks about the fact that Alira has been quietly building something between the 3 of them, not just a connection, but a structure. A foundation. The kind a person builds when they know they are leaving and they want what they leave behind to hold. She thinks about the conversation from Chapter 5. The promise Alira asked for. The specific, clear, unambiguous thing she asked Zora to do after. Zora said yes. She meant it. She is only now beginning to understand what it will require. On Monday, the board meeting moves to Tuesday. Varel has accelerated the timeline. Caius tells Alira in the morning, casually, in the tone of someone reporting the weather. Alira looks at him. "Go," she says. He shakes his head. "Caius." It is the first time she has used his name. Not Dad, which she has been trying, testing the word in small doses, but his name, direct and clear. "Go to the meeting. Keep the company. Come back. I will still be here." She says the last sentence with a steadiness that cracks him quietly from the inside. He goes. He is back by 4. When he walks through the door, Alira is awake. Zora is reading. They both look up. "Well?" Alira says. "I kept the company," he says. "And I told them I would be here every day regardless." Alira nods. "Virel?" she asks. "Gone," he says. She resigned before the vote. Quietly. The way she does everything. Alira looks at the ceiling. Something settles in her face, not triumph, not satisfaction, but the simple release of a tension she has been carrying since the day the chair went empty. Good, she says. And then, without transition, without ceremony, I'm glad you came back. 3 words that have done more work than any sentence in any boardroom he has ever sat in. She goes on a Wednesday. Not suddenly. Her body has been preparing for this for longer than the doctors originally told her, longer than she told either of them, and she has known for 3 weeks that Wednesday was the specific shape of it, the way you know the weather is turning not from any single sign but from everything at once. She knew. She did not say. She used those 3 weeks instead. She used them to have dinner on Sunday. To make Caius tell her about the piano. To listen to every unfinished Zora story with the particular attention of someone storing things. To say the things that needed saying, not loudly, not with ceremony, but in the ordinary ongoing conversation of people who are simply in the same room together. She used the time. Wednesday morning is clear. Los Angeles is doing the thing it does in early spring where the light comes in at an angle that makes everything look slightly more honest than it usually does. Caius is in the chair on one side of the bed. Zora is in the chair on the other. Both of them have been there since before 6. Neither of them called the other. They simply both arrived. Alira is awake. Her eyes are slower now. The world is taking longer to arrive to her than it used to, but they are fully present when they land on a person. She is choosing where she looks with the deliberate economy of someone who knows what they have left. She looks at Caius first. She says, "You came back. Every day. I want you to know I noticed every single day." He takes her hand. He does not trust his voice enough to use it. She looks at Zora. She says, "You already know." Zora nods. She does know. She knows the 6 words Alira whispered in Chapter 2. She has been holding them the whole time, not as a burden, but as something given in trust, the way you hold a thing that belongs to someone else, and you are keeping safe until they need it. The room is quiet in a way that feels earned. Then Alira says something she has been building toward all morning. She says it looking at the ceiling, which is where she has always directed the things that are most true. He's not strong because he built everything. A pause. A slow breath. He's strong if he stays when it breaks. The sentence lands. Caius bows his head over her hand. Zora closes her eyes for a moment, and then opens them and keeps them on Alira's face, because this is the thing she has learned across all the Tuesday nights. You stay present, you do not look away, you do not protect yourself from the weight of the moment, you receive it fully because the person in front of you is giving you everything they have left. Alira asks for the window to be opened a few inches. Zora opens it. The air that comes in is real and cool and carries the very faint smell of eucalyptus from somewhere down the hill. She asks Caius to tell her something about her mother. Not the grief version, the real version, an early version, before everything got complicated. He tells her about the first time he made her laugh, which was on a bridge in Portland in the rain, and it was the most ordinary story in the world, and Alira listens to it with her eyes closed and a small, specific smile that Caius will spend the rest of his life being grateful he got to see. She drifts after that. The machines continue. The light moves. The city outside the window does what cities do. It proceeds, indifferent and vast, completely unaware that something irreplaceable is ending quietly on the 14th floor. At 11:47, the machines stop changing. Caius does not move for a long time. His hand is still over hers. He is looking at her face, which is still. Deeply and completely still, the way only 2 things ever are: sleep, and the other thing. Zora stands up after a moment. She goes around the bed. She puts her hand on Caius's shoulder, not a performance of comfort, just a hand, solid and real. She leaves it there. He covers it with his other hand without looking up. They stay like that. The doctor comes eventually. Then the nurses. The careful, practiced procedures of a hospital absorbing a death with dignity. Caius stays through all of it. He does not retreat to the hallway. He does not call his assistant. He is present for every part of what follows, which is the most ordinary, and the most difficult, and the most human thing a person can do. When the room is finally quiet and the machines are gone and the bed is still and it is just the 2 of them, Caius looks at Zora. His eyes are red and direct and entirely without the armor he usually wears in them. She asked you for something, he says. In the beginning. She whispered something to you. Zora nods. Can you tell me? Zora looks at him for a moment. Then she says, she said, make sure he learns how to stay. The sentence is 6 words long. It takes 5 seconds to say. Caius closes his eyes. He stays. 6 weeks later, a letter arrives. It comes through a law firm, hand-delivered, the same courier service, the same quiet formality, but this time it is addressed to both of them. To Caius Whitmore and Zora Cole, jointly, at the same address. The address is the hospital. The letter was written to be held until now. The handwriting on the outside is Alira's. They open it in the garden of a house in Malibu where Alira had asked to be remembered, a small place with eucalyptus and a view of the water that she found in a magazine and asked Caius to rent for the week of her memorial. Because she did not want marble and ceremony, she wanted grass and the sound of the ocean and people eating good food in the middle of the day. Caius reads it aloud. He asked Zora if she wanted to read it herself, and she said no, she wanted to hear it in another voice. She wanted it to arrive to her the way Zora's stories used to arrive to Alira, in the room, between people, out loud. The letter is 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is for Caius. It tells him he was always capable of staying. That she knew this. That the reason she pushed was not because she doubted him but because she needed him to discover it himself, in the remaining time, so that he would have it after. She tells him she is not asking him to be perfect. She is asking him to be there. She says, those are different things and only one of them is possible and you are capable of it. The second paragraph is for Zora. It tells her that Memphis made her strong and Los Angeles made her patient, and room 14B made her necessary, and none of that was an accident. It tells her that she spent her whole life being the person who stayed for other people and that it is now, finally, someone else's turn to stay for her. She tells her, don't argue with that. I've thought about it more than you have. The third paragraph is for both of them. It is 3 sentences. It reads, my mother knew, before she died, that I would need someone who couldn't be bought or moved or arranged. She found Zora years before I got sick. She put her in my path on purpose. I found out 6 months ago. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to choose each other honestly. I think you have. Caius stops reading. He looks out at the water. Zora is very still beside him. She knew, he says. It is not a question. She knew, Zora says. The ocean does what it does, indifferent, continuous, larger than everything. A gull crosses the sky from left to right and does not circle back. The eucalyptus moves. The day is completely ordinary. The day is completely new. Caius folds the letter carefully. He puts it in the inside pocket of his jacket, the same pocket that held the shareholder letter 8 weeks ago, but this is nothing like that letter. This one he will not give to anyone. This one is for keeping. He looks at Zora. She is looking at the water. Her profile in the morning light is steady and quiet and entirely itself. He says, she told me to learn how to stay. Zora says, I know. I'm the one she told to teach you. He exhales, long, slow, and there is in that exhale everything he could not say at the beginning and everything he does not need to explain now. The gap between those 2 things is 6 weeks and a letter and a room on the 14th floor where 2 chairs sat on opposite sides of a bed. He stays. Right here. Right now. In this ordinary, irreplaceable moment. He stays. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you lost, someone who stayed, or someone who finally showed up when it mattered, share it. Share it with the person who is your Zora, or with the person who is still waiting for their Caius to walk through the door. Your comment below might be the thing that gets someone through today. Subscribe and turn on notifications.